Take a deep breath and look around you. Bridges, roads, colossal power plants. These are symbols of progress and prosperity, right? What do governments tell you when they build them? A better future, more electricity, a wealthier nation. But what if I told you that these massive, gleaming engineering marvels are actually Trojan horses? Could these projects be designed not to advance you, but to create a financial chain of debt around your nation, SNCC, a debt impossible to repay for generations? Today, I will tell you about the true architect and the hidden agenda behind a dam, a highway, or a high-speed rail line. This is not a construction story. This is the story of how international finance turns infrastructure into a political and economic weapon. When you finish this video, no matter what country you are in, you will look at every major public project, not just as an engineering feat, but as a promissory note for debt. Our story begins at the moment everything started with the promise of green energy and a bright future. But the agreements signed behind the scenes were not so bright. Are you ready? Buckle up. We're diving into the anatomy of debt. A project that will bring electricity, water, and prosperity to a nation. Who would say no? Global finance hides its trap precisely behind this shield of good intentions. Our story takes place in any rapidly growing developing nation in Africa, Asia, or South America. On the government's table lies the colossal dam project to be built on the nation's largest river. The official narrative is perfect. This dam will generate clean, renewable energy to power industry. It will bring water to arid regions, revitalizing agriculture. The nation will gain energy independence, and the national income will skyrocket. The cost of this dream project? A magnificent figure, $10 billion. Does the local government have this money? Of course not. This is precisely where those polite-looking people in suits and shiny shoes appear on the scene. International financial institutions and global mega banks. They were coming to sell their power more than the money itself. These bankers weren't just bringing a loan offer through the door. They were carrying a contract containing secret conditions that would slowly strangle the country's economic independence, growing like a poisonous vine. They offer you a friendly loan at 2% interest. But do you know how that tiny paragraph on page 47 of the contract mortgages your nation's future? The banks gladly agree to finance the project. Why? Because this is not a typical loan. This is a debt trap loan. Here are the key elements of the trap. A large portion of the loan is conditioned on purchasing materials and engineering services from the lending country's or bank's own companies, not those determined by the borrower. Meaning, most of the money returns without even entering the country. The nation incurs debt, but the bank's associates get rich. The banks and their consultants prepare the project's feasibility study with intentionally inflated costs. Even if the true cost of the dam is $8 billion, the contract is signed for $10 billion. This $2 billion difference finances the bribery, corruption, and extra profit margins within the system. Interest is shown as low in the initial years, but according to the contract, the interest rate spikes to astronomical levels, say 15 to 20%, upon unexpected economic or political events. This guarantees the debt will become unpayable. Throughout this process, local government elites and officials who approve the project remain silent, compensated by consulting fees and bribes flowing into their offshore accounts. They get rich. The nation gets indebted. Now, the dam construction has begun. But instead of bringing the promised prosperity, this colossal engineering marvel starts leaving behind an irreparable environmental disaster and social ruin. The dam is the heart of a nation's life source, the river. When you stop that heart, you don't just generate energy. You initiate a chain of irreversible ecological and human destruction. The third stage of the debt trap involves operational failures that intentionally doom the project to underperformance. Agricultural lands downstream dry up due to changing water levels and the destruction of the river ecosystem. The nation's food security is jeopardized, while the dam's energy begins to be sold to international markets at high cost. The dam reservoir swallows historical villages and farmlands, where tens of thousands of people live. Local populations are often forced to relocate to inadequate and worthless land. The ones who pay the project's true cost, the human cost, are the poorest and most powerless citizens. As the project continues, the inflated costs, that extra $2 billion we mentioned, are distributed among local contractors, politicians, and international intermediaries. Engineering standards are compromised, and material quality is reduced. The project becomes an expensive, yet poorly built monstrosity. At this stage, the public sees debt, environmental disaster, and corruption scandals instead of the promised prosperity. As the repayment deadline approaches, the government becomes desperate. When the debt becomes inevitable, the rules of the game change. The issue is no longer money. The issue is national sovereignty. International financial institutions begin knocking on the country's door. But they bring not lawyers, but economic governors. A country defaulting on a loan is not just a bad investment for a bank. It is an opportunity to seize strategic resources. Years later, the inevitable happens. Due to the debt, interest spikes, and the failure to generate expected revenue from the project, the government cannot repay the loan. The country defaults to the international financial institutions. This moment is the final act of the trap. Banks offer help to restructure the debt. But this aid is conditional. International banks send economic governors to the country, telling the government that the banks will now make the economic decisions. The government is forced to cut subsidies, privatize public assets, and open the local banking system to foreign oversight. The most valuable national assets are demanded in exchange for the debt. Control over the dam's energy production, or ports, mines, strategic roads, is handed over to foreign companies for many years in the name of debt repayment. The country is forced to buy its own water and energy at the highest price. This debt becomes a political leverage tool. International banks begin exerting indirect pressure on the country regarding its foreign policy, military spending, or even voting in the UN. Infrastructure has officially become a geopolitical weapon. The independence promised by the dam has become the lasting symbol of national dependency and economic servitude. Is this story just a dark relic of the 20th century? Unfortunately, no. Today, a new generation of global infrastructure projects continues to implement this debt trap model with even more sophisticated methods. Today, the lenders have changed, but the method remains the same. And in this game, the winner is always the international coffers, and the loser is always the local populace. The dam model from our story continues to be applied all over the world today. The old Western banks have been replaced by new Asian superpowers that have recently leveraged strategic projects to indebt nations, for example, through Belt and Road initiatives. The method is the same. High-cost projects combine with local corruption, and when default is inevitable, strategic ports or airports are demanded in exchange for the debt. But resistance exists everywhere. Local populations are fighting against the environmental and human cost brought by these projects. They are not allowing their homes and lives to be stolen in the name of progress. Their voices are the only weak point of this global debt machine. This story asks us who pays the cost of development. Can our electricity, water, or speed of travel truly be worth our national sovereignty and environment? We need progress, but that progress must never be built on debt, lies, and environmental disaster. The bigger and more grandiose a project is, the more carefully we must investigate the hidden costs behind it. The next time a government promises a colossal and free project, remember page 47 of that contract. That small paragraph might be telling you the true price of your national independence. Remember, these projects are not just made of steel and concrete. They are built from debt, lies, and the hopes of the people. If this deep dive research made you think, and you want us to expose more systemic secrets like this, please hit that subscribe button. By liking the video, you help this information reach more people. Until we lift the curtain on the next secret, look not just at the buildings, but at what they were built upon. Goodbye.